Step into a world of romance and mystery with Tamora Rose. Today we're reading part 2 of chapter 18 of Child of the Wind. By the time she and Jet left the small family, she was feeling quite proud of herself. So proud she promised the same thing to the next family, and the next. Then she made Jet turn around so she could extend her offer to the first two families. They visited several more homes in the process, all on her land and all terribly neglected. The hour was late when they finally turned back toward the distant manor. "Goodness," Canace gasped. "I do hope I can deliver on all my promises." Jet reached out and took her hand. "You were magnificent, and don't worry. There's plenty of food, and Barsland has its own wool. All we need are the women to weave it." "Do you think they know how?" "Most women do," he laughed. She frowned. "I don't." "You don't need to. All you need to do is put the woman to work. I'm sure Dolly can help you figure it all out. And if she couldn't, another woman could. Most of the manor's servants would know how things should be done." They rode in silence for a while, but when they were almost through the gates of Barsland, Canace spoke again. "Do you think anyone will come tonight?" she wondered. "They all seem so frightened." "I'm sure they will," he assured her. "The promise of good food and a warm bed for the night will get everyone here." They reined in next to the stables. Two young grooms sprinted forth to take the horses. "Where did they come from?" Canace asked as she allowed Jet to help her dismount. "They were hiding in the loft." Her mouth opened to ask another question, but he anticipated her. "The head groom has since been dismissed. He won't show you such disrespect again." Though she thought that was just a little high-handed of him, Canace said nothing. The groom had belonged to the steward, after all. They couldn't possibly have kept him. Still, Canace shook her head and let it go. If he was going to be her husband, he would soon be master here. There was no point in arguing with him about something so minor. A sudden bark distracted her. Bentley came streaming around the corner, wet and covered in burrs. "What happened to you?" she snapped as she dropped to her knees. "Do you have to get into everything?" He only barked in response and licked her face as he thoroughly soaked her gown. Jet chuckled despite himself. "Now you need to change, and he needs someone to pluck those burrs free." "I'll do it." It wasn't the first time he'd made a mess of himself. She glared at her betrothed, hoping he wouldn't tell her a servant had to do so. "Then I'll see you at supper," he responded, deciding he might as well let her have her way. At least the lambs were out amongst their own kind. Not that she knew that yet. Unaware of his internal dialogue, Canace bounced up, rushed towards the manor, and called for Bentley to follow her. He did, of course, barking all the while. As soon as they bounded up the steps, the door swung open. A man, plainly a servant, stood back to allow her to enter. As soon as she was inside, he closed the door and resumed his position, standing at attention only feet away. Canace frowned, but decided his job must be to open the door. With a shrug, she looked around. The manor had undergone a transformation. Floors were swept and stairs were cleared. Chairs were righted and tables were dusted. The vases, which had been tipped, broken, or missing entirely, now dotted the foyer. A crystal chandelier now hung brightly above her. Curtains had been stripped from windows, presumably for washing, and the windows themselves gleamed for a fresh cleaning. The foyer looked nothing like it had even this morning. Someone had been hard at work. Intrigued, Canace slipped up the stairs. At the top, a young woman was on her hands and knees, scrubbing the grime from the floors. A young man was arranging tables, vases, and other items. There was still much work to be done, but the hall was well on its way to being clean once again. A faint smell, one of cleanliness and peace, drifted on the air. Canace smiled as she and Bentley wandered past the busy servants. The horrid smell from earlier was gone. If nothing else happened today, she'd be happy enough knowing that the smell had been firmly eliminated. But she'd be happier still if she had a bedchamber that was clean and habitable. With this in mind, she dashed down the halls and toward the master chamber. When she got there, the bed was the first thing she saw. It was large and gleaming and covered in brilliant blue bedding. The blue was so bright it almost hurt her eyes. She liked it. There were other things, too. Clean carpets graced the floors. Flowing drapes were held back by silken ties, and even the fireplace had been scrubbed. There was no fire yet, but once there was, the room, though large, would be cozy indeed. Winged chairs stood ready to enjoy the warmth, and an impressive sideboard had been assembled, complete with some of her favorite fruits. Does it meet with your approval, my lady? Dolly asked from behind her. Canace turned with a smile. Of course, it's lovely. I could change the bedding if you like. The maidservant moved over to the bed and ran a hand over the blue coverlet. I thought you might enjoy the shade, but there are others you could choose from. But Canace shook her head. I love the color. It's bright and exciting and just perfect. Dolly smiled. What can I do for you, my lady? Oh, I just have to pull the burrs off Bentley. She suddenly realized she smelled like a horse, and I'd like a bath if at all possible. Of course, my lady. There's a lovely bathing chamber just off this room. The boys are almost through clearing it out. If you could give us an hour, perhaps? Maybe less? It will take me at least that long to tend to Bentley, Canace replied as she went to sit in one of the inviting wing chairs by the fireplace. Calling Bentley to her, she started pulling the burrs from his thick fur, tossing them into the cold fireplace as she did so. More than an hour later, she straightened and rubbed her sore back. It was done, and Bentley had objected only twice, but now she was definitely in need of a bath. Dolly, she called, hoping the maid hadn't abandoned her. Here, my lady. Dolly emerged from a door Canace hadn't noticed before. Your bath is ready, if you please. Thank you. Her gratitude was genuine. So when she jumped up and made for the bathing chamber, it was with noticeable haste. As soon as she entered, however, she stopped short. She'd been expecting a small room with a tub and a washstand. Instead, she was standing in a completely tiled chamber with a sunken area filled with steaming water. Rose petals floated on the water, releasing their gentle scent. A skylight was cut into the ceiling, allowing the natural light of the afternoon sun to enter the room. I've never seen anything like this, she finally whispered. Dolly smiled. The old lord had it installed for his wife, the maid explained. She did enjoy the hot water, so I've been told. Her mother, Canace realized. She could almost picture the woman she'd never known stepping gracefully down those steps and immersing herself in the steaming water. Of course, a great lady like the Countess of Barsland would have enjoyed such luxuries. The former Countess of Barsland, Canace reminded herself. She was the Countess now, so she might as well enjoy the privileges that came with the title, such as a steaming bath and a tiled bathing tub. Her skin prickled at the very idea of such a pleasure, so she reached behind her body and struggled with the long row of buttons currently holding her prisoner. Allow me, my lady. Dolly's hands were unfastening her before she could object. The woman was efficient. Once she was naked and Dolly had left her in peace, Canace sank down in the steaming water, letting its warmth envelop her. Her skin sang as she let her head fall back against the edge of the tub and closed her eyes. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this chapter, stay tuned for more tales of romance. Until we meet again, may your days be filled with passion and just a touch of magic.